show. We clash momentarily for class solidarity. Cash circulating, give the masses back its currency. Greed from a leech, oligarchs stay fed. Deep state, fake fed, everybody break bread. Racism, homophobia, sexism, religion in this melting pot we live in. Time to build a new system, unionize labor rights. Highlight the issue, talking heads left is best. The saga continues. The Nomiki show.
Well, hello. Welcome to TNS Live. It is TNS Live, which is every single Tuesday at 8 p.m. live. And you may notice that I'm not in my normal studio right now because I am coming to you from downtown Buffalo, New York. Yes, Buffalo, Western New York. This is where we are. Of course, I grew up in, I don't know how many people know this. I grew up in Buffalo, New York. I'm here for a couple of days in a hotel room, loving it already. Took a tour, drove around to my old favorite spots. Already got stuck in a snowbank. This is what happens when you go to Buffalo in February, which visit Buffalo, maybe not February. Just maybe not February. Could only get a van as a rental, couldn't get an SUV. And I got stuck in a snowbank within the first hour and a half of being in Buffalo and had to get rescued by not one, but two people who drove by me on the side of the road because I don't live in Buffalo anymore. It was hard. Anyways, thank you for joining TNS Live. We come every Tuesday night at 8 p.m. We do a show exclusively with one person, and we dig deep onto an issue that they're experts on, that they write about, that they lead on, so that you can get a little bit more material. We start off on all the platforms that we normally start off on, and then we move exclusively for pretty much the last 2/3 of the show to rockfin.com/Nomiki. So you can go find us over there and subscribe if you haven't already done so. You'll get the full, all the juicy stuff is going to be in that part. So you definitely want to move over there after the little commercial break, whatever that is. There's no commercial. Move over to rockfin.com/Nomiki. And if you haven't already, make sure to share this on like all the social media, because that's how people learn about our show. I can't tell you how many people have recently reached out to us saying, we just discovered you on this platform and that platform because we just started asking people to share. So please do so. The algorithm gods are killing us, and that's why we have to distribute ourselves on all the platforms. And that's why Rockfin's so great. They are not algorithm driven. They are subscription driven. And they've been very supportive of our work and others. And they have so many different voices, and we're hoping a lot of our friends are going to be able to join us. Today's an interesting day. We are actually going to talk about the crypto world, specifically the folks who are the crypto folks, bros, who have moved to Puerto Rico for tax benefits and why they're doing it, whether it's good or bad. There's been a lot of attention on it lately. And for those of you who don't know, who don't regularly watch our show, I've been doing a documentary on the island of Puerto Rico since Hurricane Maria. And soon after Hurricane Maria, they already were on the island because they knew about these tax benefits. But there was an active campaign to recruit more folks in the crypto world to set up shop on the island of Puerto Rico. And there have been a lot that have come. And other folks who kind of live in the online digital nomad space. So I'm really excited because a good friend of mine that I've gotten to know through the documentary and his advocacy is joining us today to break it down for us, and also how it relates to Representative Nydia Velázquez and AOC's bill that are on Capitol Hill right now, how they are intertwined. Federico de Jesús is an advocate, a political commentator. He is a public affairs consultant. He works quite a bit with, obviously, the island of Puerto Rico and interests on Capitol Hill. He was he was a communications director, national communications director for Hispanic media in the Obama for America 2008 presidential campaign. That was the good one. He also worked over at Senator Harry Reid's office, that guy, Nancy Pelosi. But don't, judge the Capitol Hill by his tie, because I've spent a lot of time with Fede, and Fede is one of us activists. So, I mean, you've been arrested. Let's just be real. Like, you've been arrested protesting Vieques, like when you're this is where you come from, and you just, are in the Hill, hopefully turning into law or blocking law. So, want to start off with just some of the basics here. we're going to get into the crypto stuff, but let's just start off before we get to the what's happening on the Hill, before we get to what's happening with crypto. What are these tax laws? Like, how did this happen? Because it feels like everyone just woke up yesterday and realized Puerto Rico might be a tax haven, and may have also just realized the day before that Puerto Rico was a U.S. colony, but it took them a minute to realize this.
Exactly. Well, Nomiki, great to see you virtually now, and thank you for having me, and special shout out to those watching. So Puerto Rico is the only place in the world where a U.S. citizen can move and not pay any federal income taxes and not have to resign their U.S. citizenship because the nation of Puerto Rico is a U.S. colony, but it's treated as a foreign jurisdiction for tax purposes. And there's a reason for that. All U.S. territories except Washington, D.C., which is the capital where I live and pay taxes without any representation. But in the overseas territories, they don't pay federal income taxes, mainly because taxation without representation, but also because it benefits U.S. corporations. And for the longest time, there were tax breaks for companies to create jobs in Puerto Rico. But after Congress unilaterally took those away, which, by the way, that caused a financial crisis, local lawmakers decided, you know what if we attract people with a hook that they don't have to pay any federal income taxes if they become a resident, but we'll just exempt them from any capital gains, dividends, or other taxes in the island. So literally their tax bill comes down to zero in most cases, just for the mere fact of living in the island and having their transactions run from there, right? So you have to see all these crypto bros, investors, some of whom are great people and create jobs, but most are there just to fatten their wallets, and they've actually caused major disruptions in the real estate market, and there are a lot of fears that Puerto Ricans are being priced out of their own land. But I'm not going to get ahead because you know a lot about this.
Well, it's not. So let's go back to the taxes for a second, because it's not like you can just move there or set up shop there. There are all these rules or things that folks have to do to qualify. What do they have to do? And are they actually doing it? And one more, like, who oversees it?
That's a great question. So there are two laws. One law is called Act 22, which is designed to bring in outsiders. And it basically says
and
if
I'm
you
sorry,
haven't lived
I don't mean to interrupt. Are these federal laws or Puerto Rican laws?
These are Puerto Rican laws, but coupled with the federal laws that exempt residents of Puerto Rico from taxation, that's when it becomes so attractive and unique around the world. So back in around 2010, we had a Republican governor in Puerto Rico who said his campaign platform was, I'm going to get 100 millionaires to move to Puerto Rico, and because of the magic pixie dust of trickle-down economics, that's going to benefit everybody. So he passed this law, basically exempting investors, individual people, from capital gains and all these dividend taxes. And they have to live in Puerto Rico half of the year plus a day, so 183 days. Now, there have been all sorts of cheats. The IRS is cracking down. There were actually arrests, people that worked for BDO and cheated the system. Some people I've been told that if they have a private plane, they land in Puerto Rico to refill, that counts as a day, and they can just go to the Caymans or wherever else they live in the Hamptons. No offense to New Yorkers in the Hamptons, lovely place, but you get the drift. And so, yeah, there are people that follow the law. Most of them do, but the local economic development corporation, DEC, isn't really following up that much. They've recently tried to beef up enforcement, and again, the IRS, because former Congressman Serrano, AOC, and Nidia Velazquez wrote to them, started to investigate whether they were actually complying with federal law. But to comply with Puerto Rico law, you got to do is sign certificates and make sure you're there for half of the year, and that's it.
Don't they also have to, your kids have to register at local schools now? I mean, they've updated a little bit here and there. And I mentioned this because there's been a lot of like attention on this. And so more and more people are, it's almost been like reporters have been reporting on this like in a bad, but not fully in a bad way. Like, oh my God, people are taking over the island of Puerto Rico, like after the storm. And then people see it and then they move there and don't understand that it's actually a lot more complicated. And there's enforcement.
Yeah, look, let's start with, again, this Act 22 is a Puerto Rican law. Some people find it unfair because it's not available. Those tax benefits aren't available to local residents. They're only available to people who haven't lived in the island for the last 15 years. And at the beginning, you had to create 3 jobs, own a home, and put your kids in school. That's ebbed and flowed. I think now it's 5 jobs, and they increased the charitable contribution yearly to, I think, $10,000 or something like that.
Charitable to an organization on the island, a nonprofit.
Any charitable organization on the island that meets certain requirements, yes. And so it's not like, for example, the EB-5 program in the States, and I know this is Capitol Hill wonky, but basically you create 500,000 jobs or you invest $1 million or something like that and you get a green card. Well, in Puerto Rico, obviously, it's not technically foreign, although for tax purposes and others it is. And you don't have to renounce your U.S. citizenship, and you can buy a house. And the property values have gone up, not just because these people, of the mere fact they're moving in, but because they're saving so much money with the tax breaks that aren't available to locals, that it's just skyrocketed. I know people that have gotten slips under their doors. We're going to buy your house. People that aren't selling. People that have gotten literally a blank check, and the investor says, put the price that you want. And so it's literally pricing out locals from their own land.
So this started to speed up really after Hurricane Maria, and I mean they existed before. There was a guy named Michael Turpin who was probably the first crypto guy. I don't want to call him a bro because he was, I think, in his 50s or 60s, who moved to the island and said, there are these tax breaks, like this can be a tax haven and it's perfect. I mean, investors were already doing it, right? You already had folks who were either taking advantage of it or advocated for it. And there are even some people who don't take advantage of it and advocate for it, that are developers and investors and, venture capitalist types. And then Michael Turpin, who was early crypto world, said, we should really build a crypto universe. But it was very professionalized and operationalized, and he was doing it with respect kind of the island. He started a conference to attract people, but then something went completely wacky after Hurricane Maria. And I don't want to say it's like, it is a cultural thing. It's Brock Pierce, who's this very well-known ambassador for the crypto universe. He's a self-proclaimed billionaire from crypto, was a former child actor from Mighty Ducks. He was part of the Epstein story in the early 2000s. And he moved to Puerto Rico after Hurricane Maria, but there's many different dates that he's thrown out there that he found out about these tax files in 2014. Then he says he found out about it after Hurricane Maria. It's hard to say what he's actually done. But soon after Hurricane Maria, within like 3 or 4 months, say January, February of 2018, he was actively publicizing that he was trying to build a community of crypto folks and buying out buildings that were distressed. And so, I mean, that's obviously gotten much, much worse. But back then, people were fleeing the island because it was not functional. Folks it's not that they couldn't afford to live there. They couldn't actually live there. So while people were suffering the consequences of Hurricane Maria and the debt crisis and leaving, they were swooping in saying, no power, no worries. This is a great opportunity for us. Let's buy this building. Let's buy this museum. Let's buy this. Let's buy that. Let's buy this old, hotel, whatever, to kind of create this sexy environment. And like, it was an idea at one point that kind of seemed a little crazy, but has it really turned into something? Is the press actually reflecting what's happening on the island? Is it all bros, in other words?
No, it's not. They thankfully haven't succeeded in establishing their cryptopia in Puerto Rico. Brock Pierce, who you mentioned that he was going to invest $1 billion in Puerto Rico or some ridiculous amount of money like that, and it's only been peanuts. And let's be frank. Yes, Puerto Rico had deteriorating economy before, obviously after the hurricane. Before the hurricane, obviously there was a lot of investment fleeing and jobs fleeing. So this law was meant to basically shore up the luxury real estate market. But after Hurricane Maria, there's a lot of construction in Puerto Rico because of the rebuilding and because of these wealthy investors. It's just skyrocketed, for example, and they've created their own enclaves. The Washington Post called them crypto colonizers. Some of them aren't crypto, but they're building their own mini colonies in Puerto Rico. The colony within the colony, they have their own hospital in a place called Dorado. They're building Johns Hopkins, and they're slowly basically trying to take over.
Private hospital.
And again, gentrification isn't a new concept for Americans anywhere, but Puerto Ricans are a colony, and they're stealing away our land. They already own it politically, and now they're actually physically trying to take it away. And they're not necessarily also doing it on purpose. People don't necessarily move there, oh, let me take land away from Puerto Ricans so we can take over and be a colony. But that's the policy implication of a law that, let's just be fair with the people that intended it well, has turned out not to be in the benefit of most Puerto Ricans, even though some individuals obviously benefit because they're accountants or because they've sold property to those folks. But Puerto Ricans have already left the island because of hurricanes and the economy. The last thing we want is that they can't afford their own in their own island.
We're going to take a really quick break and move over to rockfin.com/Nomiki, and we're going to talk a little bit more about this because the conditions were right for something like this, and not accidental. I mean, you mentioned that people were leaving already, but part of this came about because of the financial crisis and what led up to the financial crisis. And I think there are a lot of folks who talk about the status of Puerto Rico, whether it's a state or not. We're going to dig into that and really try to understand what the real strategy is here in that fight, without going too much into the weeds, because there are a set of bills on Capitol Hill again to help determine what the status of the island is. You mentioned a colony within a colony. I mean, usually colonies are occupied by capital, but I don't know how the crypto folks can be occupied by the colony that they're occupying. It's a little confusing, but we're going to take a quick break. We're going to continue to talk about this. It's very relevant because the conditions on the island actually, to me, seem like they mirror a lot of conditions in cities across America. Let things fail, whether even New York City, let things fail, fall apart, and then capital comes in, takes advantage of it as folks can't afford to live there anymore. And then, you're looking at like mini Dubais everywhere around the planet. So this is a working people issue that transcends across the board globally, but it's just really exacerbated on the island because of its political status and a few other things. So we're going to talk about that in the next part. Go move over there to rockfin.com/Nomiki if you're not there already. If you are there, stick around, share, like, subscribe, and we will see you in a couple seconds.